welcome to Bonus Energy, another tier list. This time, the DCEU, joined by Cattail once again.
Hello.
I did do a DCEU tier list a few years ago, I don't remember now, but this time it's actually complete. They have finished the DCEU as much as they're going to.
It took them long enough.
Yeah. So there are 16 movies and then one show. They included Peacemaker on this list, which I'm allowing. I'll just do it because I've seen it. So how many of these have you seen?
I've seen like somewhere around half of these.
Yeah, you've seen Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, not this one.
Yes. Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, Black Adam.
Shazam. No, you've seen Wonder Woman 84.
I've seen that one, I forgot.
Did you see the new Suicide Squad?
I did not, though I would like to see that one.
And then you saw Black Adam and Flash.
Yes.
I'd say that's about half. At least half. All right. Well, let's just start. We'll go. These are already sorted in release order, so we'll just do it that way. Let's start with Man of Steel. I really want to rewatch this movie. I've seen it twice, I believe. It's one of the better ones.
I thought you saw it another time.
Well, maybe I did. I don't know. I saw it initially, and then I saw it when I bought it. But I think it's probably a top 3, I think, here on my ranking. I'll just go ahead and start and put it in A tier. I think it's a high A tier. Not quite S, because there's just some parts to it that aren't perfect. And then in terms of like a Superman movie, this one is not a traditional Superman. Like if I wanted to get someone into the character of Superman, I probably wouldn't show them this because they would get the wrong idea of Superman, right?
I think Man of Steel is it's kind of like a microcosm of the DCEU as a whole, if you think about it, because it tries a different take on the character and it works at parts, but it's also not something that can sustain itself forever. Mm-hmm. It can work as solo adventures, but as it combined with everything else, I think Man of Steel is honestly kind of dragged down by what comes after it, but that's no fault of the movie.
Right. So what would you rank Man of Steel?
I think A is completely fair.
A is fair.
I honestly don't think there are going to be any S's in my version of this list, but
I will say it is a top-tier Superman movie, even though it's not top-tier Superman character. And it is a top-tier superhero movie altogether, even though it is on the darker side. A lot of big-time Superman fans who do like this movie refer to it as an Elseworld story, and they see it for that, and they like it for that. But they choose to see it as they weren't going for traditional Superman. So they kind of give it a pass on that, which I can understand. Okay, so next up is Batman v Superman. So
the controversial one.
Yeah. So second movie in, this is where a lot of people will say they dropped it and they blew it. I agree on some parts. I want to say right away that this is my favorite DCEU movie. It's one of my favorite DC movies, favorite superhero movies, and I think it's really good all around. There's a lot of stuff that works, a lot of stuff that is really entertaining to watch, especially as a Batman fan. There's a lot that they do wrong and that shouldn't be there. Batman using guns, Batman shooting people, killing off Superman at the end of the second film. Who thought of that? What kind of idiot? Like, no. Even if they had every intention of bringing it back to life, that's just not a good idea. So, but the fight scenes are really good, and I know a lot of people have a problem with the Martha thing, but you know, every time I watch it, I watch it with the mindset of, is this stupid? Is this not going to work for me? And every time it happens, I'm like, I don't have a problem with it. I think the only problem you can have is the fact that Superman refers to his own mother by her first name. But as for like Martha causing Bruce to freeze up, that has been set up throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
They're constantly referencing it, and he's like, that's his whole thing. So I think it works. I mean, it's definitely an interesting idea at the very least. Maybe it could have been executed better, but, you know.
What I find most interesting about Batman v Superman is it almost feels, on some level, kind of like a lighter version of Injustice, where, like, Superman's not the bad guy, you know?
I can see that.
They're just kind of the way they frame the story. Also, Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor, is a decision that they made.
Were we talking about this recently? That is crazy. I want to know the background of how he got that role. How?
It's like, if you actually watch Batman v Superman, like, he is so out of place in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else has this kind of aura around them, and they're in this, like, set kind of mood, and it works. But I think probably the reason a lot of people think that the movie is more ridiculous than it is because of Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor. Because it's so unserious compared to everything else.
Yeah, it's like, and I still don't even think he's necessarily bad, or like he could never do it. It's just, he would never be my first choice. You know, if I'm shopping around for a Lex Luthor, I'm not thinking, you know what, this guy. You know, I just don't see it, and I don't understand. But I guess his acting was not the best for Lex Luthor, but I do think he was written as a pretty decent Lex Luthor.
I think they just saw The Social Network and then cast him in the role, but that's my
also
theory.
Could be true. Again, if you didn't see our last one, basically what we'll do is this one will be my tier list, and at the very end I'll reorganize it and show you Cattail's tier list, because his will be probably different from mine, and he hasn't seen them all. I've seen them all, he hasn't. So I'm gonna put mine top of A tier.
Perfectly fair.
As much as I enjoy it and I will defend it, I don't think it's S tier. So Suicide Squad. You haven't seen Suicide Squad, the first one.
I've seen enough.
You've seen enough?
I've seen enough to form my opinions and know that I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. So I will admit it's not a great movie, but you know, it's not bad. It's kind of like with every single movie in the DCEU. There are parts of it that I disagree with as a DC fan. There are parts that just do not work, that were done incorrectly, they were rushed, whatever the case. But ultimately, this falls under one of the enjoyable ones for me. But not I can watch it every time it's on enjoyable, but enjoyable enough that I own it and I put it with my collection. It's one I'd be worth owning.
Make sure you aren't getting scenes mixed up between this one and the other Suicide Squad.
No, yeah. That's a thing of it though. This one's pretty forgettable. It's kind of beginning to end. They kind of just go on a linear path and then it ends. Versus the other one, which has a lot of other stuff going back and forth. So I think this is a C tier. Probably a high C tier for being enjoyable. I don't think it's bad though. Yeah. I don't know if anything's gonna get F tier.
There isn't an F tier on the list.
I don't know. Well, that's true. I thought of that, but hopefully I don't have to do an F tier. If there is one rightfully of F tier, we'll add it. Okay, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was really the fourth movie in? I thought Justice League was first, no?
No. Wonder Woman was before Justice League.
Okay.
It's not like it matters because Wonder Woman has nothing to do with Justice League or really any other movie in the entire DCEU.
This is true. So why don't you go with Wonder Woman first?
Yeah. Wonder Woman is honestly one of the best ways to describe it is like basically Man of Steel, but for Wonder Woman, except swap out the interesting villain for kind of just a good setting, I guess, is a way to put it. Like the world of Wonder Woman, like the time period she's in, it feels very fleshed out and well done. It's just they kind of dropped the ball at the end, I would say. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd call him the worst villain, but I think it's ultimately the most disappointing because the movie was doing so well up to that point. And if you had a solid villain, I think this could have been an 8 out of 10. It could have been a 9 out of 10 or whatever. And it would have been, up there, one of the better ones. Or it is one of the better ones, but it would have been even better.
Honestly, this is the movie that kind of made me a Wonder Woman fan and defender, which is kind of crazy to think about. But it also kind of proves that they just don't know what to do with her for some reason. And even if they get everything else right, they're going to drop the ball on the villains for some reason. I don't get it.
Yeah, this could be completely DC's fault for how they are, rolling out Wonder Woman content. But as a viewer and a fan of DC who wants to be invested in these characters and wants to see good stories about them, and we'll get to the same thing when it comes to the Aquaman movie, the stories in these two movies seem to be the only stories that these two characters have on their own. There's an animated movie which is more or less the same story. The time period is different, but it's the same villain as Steve Trevor, same plot. I think when they do repetitive stuff like that, it kind of detracts, I think, from the impact, I guess. You know, it doesn't make it feel as unique or special. So it just kind of comes off as, oh yeah, we're doing a Wonder Woman, and oh yeah, we're gonna do the Wonder Woman story because we don't have anything else. At least to me, that's how it comes off as.
I definitely think it doesn't help that the most exposure these characters have had outside these movies is in Injustice, of all things. That definitely does not help.
So, I don't know if Wonder Woman's an A tier for me, honestly.
I would. I'd consider it below Man of Steel, but...
It has very enjoyable moments, and it has very, I would have done something differently moments. So, I don't know. I'm thinking high B tier. That's honestly how I'm feeling.
I don't know. Like, aside from the end villain fight, I think the movie's pretty solid overall.
But it's not one I'm like really want to rewatch, or like, oh, this is a great DC movie. I don't know.
That's fair.
That's how I'm feeling about it, talking about it. So I think I'm going to go high B tier. Again, your list will be different. Then we get to Justice League. The original first release of Justice League. Do you remember this much?
I do. It's just, it's one of those movies where it's just like, certain scenes pop out to you, but then everything else is just a blur.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, it's disappointing. If you are a DC fan who respects DC and respects yourself as a DC fan, you would know that this film is not what it should have been. But I don't think it's complete garbage either. At least, I guess that would be on a technical level. I mean, there's some stuff in there, and it's just not horrible, but it's so just not it, I guess. I don't know. And then, like, Superman is not part of the Justice League. Yes, he shows up in the end, but they started this movie. They killed him off in Man of Steel, or Batman v Superman, and then said, you know what? Justice League, let's go. Now that Superman's out, let's start the Justice League. It's like, what?
I think every single problem with this movie can be summed up by the fact that Cyborg is on the cover over Superman, and I think I don't need to elaborate. If you know, you know.
Side tangent. Cyborg has no place in the Justice League, at least not in the top 10. Like, if we're in like 30 members in and you want to add him, we can talk. But
if they wanted to add someone like Cyborg, like Mr. Terrific is right there. And they're literally doing that in the new Superman movie. Maybe they learned their lesson.
How about Green Lantern? Anyone remember him? He's kind of a staple. Martian Manhunter, anybody? I don't know. Separate rant, but I think this is a C tier, and I think it's above Suicide Squad. I think I'd rather watch Justice League than Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But see, I think Justice League disappoints more than Suicide Squad, but Justice League has better scenes than Suicide Squad. Specifically, the one where they revive Superman and he's like fighting them.
Yeah,
there. That's probably the highlight.
A movie can be disappointing while still being better than other movies.
And then we get to Aquaman, the first Aquaman. I think this movie is the epitome of average superhero movie. It's flashy, it looks good, lots of CGI, top name actors, entertaining, nothing over that. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Also, again, as you said before, this is like the only Aquaman story they ever tell.
Yeah. Watching Young Justice, I think like doing a Black Manta story like that would have been really cool. Yeah, Black Manta's in here, but he's more or less a bounty hunter who works for Orm, who is just not that interesting. I mean, this is as far as interesting as Orm gets. And he kind of shows up, he shows up in the second one, and he's a character, and they do some interesting things with him, but it's not like I'm excited to see Orm. He's not a villain that gets people excited as far as I know. So having him be your main villain and then I guess a secondary protagonist in the second one, it's not really doing it for me if you're trying to get me to be an Aquaman fan.
I think Aquaman might have one of the worst villain problems, because aside from Orm, who only has one possible story, and Black Manta, he has nobody.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason Aquaman was just not a fan favorite. I think this is another C tier, high C tier. I put it over Justice League, I think, but
yeah.
Do I have it over Justice League?
You better.
I actually don't. On my list, I have Justice League over Aquaman. But
really?
And I actually have Suicide Squad over Aquaman.
Really?
But this this tier list is not a reflection of my own list. This is how I feel right now. And this is what I feel right now. At the very least, you could argue Aquaman has more effort put into it than Suicide Squad did, for sure. And then Justice League is so held back by its potential that it didn't even try for.
Yeah.
So.
Also, Aquaman is no longer a complete joke of a character, basically solely thanks to Jason Momoa. So
also true. That's worth pointing out. Okay, now we have Shazam, which you haven't seen.
No, I have not seen Shazam.
You should see Shazam, because I'm gonna go right in A tier. This is one of the better ones. This is a solid one. It's really good characters. They're entertaining to watch. They're enjoyable to watch. You're rooting for them. Again, villain problem. They copied all the wrong notes from the MCU, where it's like, the superheroes are likable, they're doing cool stuff. When it comes to the villains, they're forgettable. You don't care.
I'm just realizing, aside from Zod and Maxwell Lord, all the villains here are like pretty bad.
Maxwell Lord, we'll get to that in a second. I think that was all writing, but yeah, I mean, Man of Steel was good, and then I don't know. Anyway, Shazam's good. I would recommend you watch it. Everyone should watch Shazam. It's up there. It's just so enjoyable. I don't know.
How did Shazam get a sequel and not Man of Steel?
I was just looking at this list. It's funny because Batman v Superman is where a lot of people would argue they dropped the ball. And then Suicide Squad, not great. Then Justice League. I think Justice League made money, but still. I mean, a lot of these made money, which is why they kept getting movies, I guess. But no one would say that this was peak DC. And then you get things like Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 84, which for both of these, I'm just going to go here. We'll get to that in a second. But the point is, you got two flops back to back. And then they just throw this out there, Zack Snyder's Justice League, because they didn't care anymore. Or they thought, maybe we can sell, HBO Max on it. And then look at this. You get one movie, which was kind of like a James Gunn passion project. They just let him have it. So they let him have it. They let him have it. I guess they let him have it a second time. They let Dwayne Johnson have it. And then look at this. 2023, they just pushed out 4 DCEU movies. Why?
They had no idea what they were doing. But
Why?
We could talk all year about how this series was fun.
Yeah, but isn't that just crazy? The thing is dead by Black Adam, where they're at the point they decide, you know what, we're not going to do Henry Cavill anymore. We're not doing Black Adam versus Superman. And their response to that, $1 billion of budget for 4, DCEU movies. What? I just don't get it.
I would argue it was dead after 84, especially after Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
But
Well, 84 is what killed any excitement of DCEU once and for all. Because, Superman was already out at that point. Batman had no sign of getting his own movie. And then you just destroyed the Wonder Woman sequel. So no one was excited anymore. You killed all 3.
Yeah.
So we're on these 2. You haven't seen Birds of Prey. I don't want to spend any longer on that than I have to. Terrible movie. I've never been so bored. That's not true. It's very boring. But the redeeming thing, why this is not an F tier, is Ewan McGregor single-handedly saved it from being an awful movie. It is just a barely passable movie. Nothing about this movie works at all, except for Ewan McGregor's performance, which isn't even accurate to Black Mask. But at that point, I didn't care, because he's the only one who was even trying. He was the only one who looked like he was having a good time. So when he was having a good time, I was having a good time. And then anyone else was on screen, I wanted to be out of there. Terrible. I would never recommend watching this. I own Suicide Squad. I do not want to own Birds of Prey. Not even for Ewan McGregor. And it's not that good, but that was the only thing I could say about it. And then 84. You've seen 84.
I've seen 84.
What do you think about 84? You've only seen it once.
Yes. I want to say, basically, nothing in this movie works except for Maxwell Lord for like the first half. And then at the end, he just decides to not be a villain anymore. He decides to stop being a good character. And then it's over. That's the movie. Nothing happens except for Pedro Pascal carrying the entire movie. And then he just decides he doesn't want to anymore. And then it's over.
Yeah. This may be the worst written movie on here. And that's saying a lot when you got these 3 right here. I think this is bad. We all watched this when it came out, right?
We watched it when it came out.
All together. I remember I actually gave this a 6 initially. I don't remember why. I think I just really liked Pedro's performance. It kind of boosted it for me, and I overlooked everything else. And then I watched all the response to it, saw videos on it. I'm like, oh my god, what did I do? And then I forced myself to rewatch it, I think last year or something, and I dropped its rating. I would put it over Birds of Prey because ultimately I think I would rather watch it. It's a more entertaining train wreck than Birds of Prey is. Plus it has Pedro. So for those two, I'd rather watch.
I do think it's interesting that both those movies have the same thing, where there's one guy who's kind of carrying the movie on their back.
Yeah, that's true. And then Chris Pine also. But that's...
Yeah, but he also shouldn't have been there, so...
Right, he's the best character, yet he had no business being in the movie. That is a huge problem. He wasn't even relevant to the plot. No, he's not relevant. He shouldn't be there. He's ruining the main character, and he's the best part. That is horrible. That says everything. So, D tier. Although both of these I wouldn't give F. I know a lot of people give 84 an F, and maybe it deserves it, but at this point, I don't think anything else is going to get F, so I'm not going to make an F. Okay, Zack Snyder.
Before you get into this, I do want to say that a opinion I have heard is that Zack Snyder's Justice League is actually worse than the original.
Really?
Yes, I have heard that opinion a couple times now, and I think it's extremely interesting.
I have not heard that opinion, but I do not instinctively disagree. So when this came out, I watched it on Max originally. I watched Justice League right here, right before I watched Justice League Zack Snyder. And my takeaway from it was, yes, technically Zack Snyder's Justice League is better than Justice League. However, it is not by much. The only reason it is better is because it adds more scenes and more context. You get more of your superheroes, which is the whole point of Justice League. You're there to watch all the superheroes. The other problem is it's 2 hours longer. This thing is 4 hours long. So you're telling me in 2 additional hours, double the length of Justice League, because Justice League is famously only 2 hours because they were only allowed to do 2 hours. Zack Snyder's is 4 hours, and it's only barely better. There's so many people who are like, oh, this is, great. This is like perfect Justice League. This is what we wanted all along. And at this point, I'm pretty sure those are just all the Zack Snyder fanboys who don't even watch his movies, but they just give him 10 out of 10s because whatever.
I don't think Zack Snyder fanboys exist anymore, not after...
No, they do. They're really annoying. That's why I'm saying I don't think they even watch his movies, because he wouldn't have fans if they watched his movies. So yes, technically I would say it's better than Justice League, and yes, technically it's fine. But is it worth the 4 hours? No. Absolutely not. I have no problem telling you to watch Justice League just to save you an additional 2 hours. I guess I'll put it there. Well, I'll put it there. No, I'll put it there. That's what I'm trying to do. I think I'd rather watch Aquaman just because it's not 4 hours. Although, on the record, I think this is better than Aquaman.
We've had this discussion many times about runtime.
Yes, runtime is a completely separate discussion. However, you cannot get me to not care about a movie faster than putting it over 3 hours. I'm telling you right now. I'm out. All right, The Suicide Squad. You haven't seen this one either? Have you seen?
No.
Okay, you have Black Adam and Flash left, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to get through these quickly. The Suicide Squad is a good movie. It's better than the first Suicide Squad. It's fun. It's entertaining. There are down parts, but it just works. A lot of it just works. I'm going to go A tier. I think Shazam's better, but it's solid. It's a lot of fun. I think I already said that. I would check it out. I guess this is the one that got James Gunn, the DCEU, the new one that's coming out. So
I can see why. I think a lot of people liked the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Unfortunate title, but
Right. And you know what I think most impressive to me is that it made characters that are more or less the D-grade Batman villains actually entertaining to watch and interesting. That's impressive. It's not like we did Eggman and the Calculator or whatever. But there's Polka Dot Man, part of the main cast. And he worked, and Peacemaker, whoever that was, right? You didn't know who that was. Okay, and then we'll do the Peacemaker show. This one's also solid, entertaining, good. I would recommend it. It's pretty short, so it's not. I wouldn't call it a waste of time or anything like that. But it's not great. I guess it's getting season 2. There's a lot that they miss on, and sometimes it can kind of drag, but it's really cool. And Vigilante's in it too, although he is wildly different than he was in Arrow. Like, he basically more or less turned him into Deadpool, but just not as cool, good, or smart. Okay, Black Adam. What do you got about Black Adam?
There's been a lot said about Dwayne Johnson and his attempted takeover of DC, but I think Black Adam as its own thing, just looking at it for what it is, it's a fun time. You get a lot of cool characters and cool moments, and it's just there to be a good time. You're not supposed to think about it that much. It's definitely a popcorn movie. It's just go in, you know what to expect, you're gonna have fun. If you're looking there for something deeper, you clearly have not been paying attention to the DCEU so far.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. This is not a Man of Steel or an Avengers or whatever. This is just complete actors in costumes fighting each other for fun. The story is, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say garbage, but it is not great. It is not really captivating. It's not anything. I am here because they got Pierce Brosnan to play Dr. Fate. That's all I needed, and I will defend it. It's entertaining. It's not super long. I don't remember if it's 2 hours. It's right around 2 hours. It flows decently well. The villain is horrible. It's just, it works, and it's good, and it's entertaining. I think it's B tier. I won't make people mad and put it above Wonder Woman, but I think it's better than Peacemaker. I'd rather watch Black Adam than Peacemaker. Shazam. Number two. I just rewatched this, actually, and it is not bad, but it's nowhere near the first one. So many flaws, so many problems, but it's way more watchable than something like, we'll get to Blue Beetle or the second Aquaman or Birds of Prey or, anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do high C tier. I'd rather watch Shazam 2 than Aquaman 1, I think. Again, not bad. It's got a lot of good atmosphere, good stuff going on. It's just kind of, it's like a complete average, it's on par with like the last couple of years of Marvel, I would say, where it's like,
that's not a good benchmark.
No, but I mean, it gets a slight boost because now it's in the DCEU versus the MCU, right? The averages are a lot lower, so therefore it's going to look better. That's how I see it.
That's true.
I don't know if I'd call it like Quantum Mania, but I guess Doctor Strange 2. I'd rather watch this than Doctor Strange 2. I don't know. Whatever. All right, Flash.
Ooh.
I haven't watched my version of this yet. I got it on Black Friday. I still haven't watched it. Saw this twice in theaters. I think it's good. I don't know how good.
Flash is a really weird movie because it's a movie that wants you to turn your brain off, but also wants you to pay close attention to like how the mechanics of everything works, and that's just like completely incompatible.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I think this is a high B tier movie. I think I like Flash more than Wonder Woman. That's gonna upset a lot of people. Yes, but I want to be very clear. As a actual Flash movie, this is probably a C or a D. This movie is a solid and entertaining DC movie. It has way too much Batman in it to be a solid Flash movie. And I'm okay with that as a Batman fan. I would be more upset about this if I hadn't seen the Flash show, which has a lot of good Flash in it. Obviously, there's the whole second half.
We're going to talk about that someday. Don't you worry.
We'll get into that in a different thing. But on the other side of that, if there wasn't a Flash TV show, I wouldn't care enough about the Flash to want a movie. I feel like this movie only exists because of the show's popularity, increasing the popularity of the character. But at the same time, where was the villain here? That's not a Flash villain.
If you've seen the Flash show, specifically season 3, and you know of Savitar, you instantly can think of all the missed potential that this movie had with its villain.
Right. With what they did, it should have been Savitar.
Yeah.
But it should have been Reverse Flash.
This was a
total Reverse Flash story. And he was even there. They admit that he killed his mom.
Yeah.
It's like, where was he? Come on.
Maybe Flash just isn't a kind of character you can do these kind of movies for.
No, you can. It's just, and then there's Ezra Miller, which whatever. But I don't know. It's entertaining. I enjoy it. I would rather watch it than Wonder Woman. I like it more than Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman probably has higher highs, but Flash to me is more consistently enjoyable. That's how I see it. Why? There's so much Batman in there. They literally make one of the Flash dudes put a Batman suit on. I don't know. This is weird. Weird, but fine, you know. Okay, so that's the last one you've seen, right? So
yes,
we get the last two here. Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2. So Blue Beetle is watchable. It is very disappointing. I will say that the casting on this one was the correct choice. I thought it was good. This is one of those things where we were watching Cobra Kai before this movie was even announced and he was cast. It's like, you know what? This guy would make a great Jaime Reyes. He could play Blue Beetle. And they got him. They actually got the right guy. I didn't go see this movie, but I watched it the second it was put on Max. It's disappointing. The villain's not great again. The plot is just so standard MCU superhero. It is not special in any way. They don't make a good point of making Blue Beetle a likable or interesting superhero. He is no different than, like, you know, Falcon or Iron Man. It's just Blue Beetle. They don't do a good job at all telling you why you should like or care about Blue Beetle. But it's not garbage. It's just so unbelievably generic. I actually have Aquaman over Blue Beetle on my list, but I think that's because I was overly disappointed with Blue Beetle. But thinking back on it now, I think I would so rather watch Blue Beetle than Aquaman 2. So I'm going to put Blue Beetle at the bottom of C tier, I think. And Aquaman 2 is going to go at the top of D tier. I didn't like Aquaman 2. This is another one like Birds of Prey. I was so bored. Nothing interesting was happening. They were just going through the motions. Here's a battle. Here's a go prison break. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just so bland. Honestly, the perfect ending for the DCEU because it just does nothing.
They set up Black Manta to be the villain, and
I mean, I guess he was, but was he really? Because he was like being mind controlled by a trident, which was controlled by some other sea god or something. So yeah, Black Manta's the villain, but it's not the Black Manta you came to see.
Wait, really? They didn't just have Black Manta be the villain?
No.
Okay, well.
No. You're confusing what really happened with good ideas.
I tend to do that a lot these days. It's a very concerning problem.
But yeah, so I think, I don't know, anything else to add? It's tough. Maybe we shouldn't have done this in chronological release order, whatever, because the end half of the DCEU is just such a nothing.
Well, I think it's perfectly fitting to do it in release order because that's what the DCEU is. It was kind of just nothing at the end of it.
The highs and lows.
You got a couple good things in there, and then it was just a giant waste of time.
Think about
it soured the reputation of DC for a lot of people, and honestly, the failure of the DCEU probably set DC back by an additional 10 years.
Yeah, so I think it's probably late 2010s. Everyone was at the point, well, actually probably like 2020 after Wonder Woman 84. Everyone was at the point where we're like, okay, cut the DCEU, we need to start over. Because this whole time they've been trying to copy Marvel. They wanted their own MCU. But, I mean, just look at the first four. You got Superman. All right, Superman's dead. And then we got Wonder Woman. Fine. And then Suicide Squad? What?
Yeah.
That's like having Guardians of the Galaxy in your starting lineup. Like, no.
It's not even having Guardians in your starting lineup.
The point is, it's like they took way too long to figure out that this wasn't going to work. It's interestingly enough, they decided it wasn't going to work after some decent films, decent successes. This one was well received, I'll put it that way. And then you had Black Adam, which was all right received. It didn't make all the money they wanted, which is why they cut Dwayne. And then you had Peacemaker, which was well received. Suicide Squad, which was well received. Shazam was on the back end of that, 2019. That one went over well. You had some winners, and then the last four, Shazam was whatever. People like Flash didn't make the money, and then Blue Beetle was and Aquaman was But I mean, you could have cut these two, released the Black Adam versus Superman in 24. Had that be your last one, just to kind of provide kind of like a break. A little stall movie until Superman reboot in 25.
Oh, I think honestly, the biggest saving grace for the DCEU of all things was the Batman. Because if it wasn't for the Batman, I think the DCEU would go down a lot more sour in
That's
people's
true.
minds.
That kind of proved that no one really cared about the DCEU. They just want to see good stories, which I
Yeah.
think they got two good notes from that. Is one, they don't need the DCEU, so they can scrap it and start over. And two, just because they're doing a connected universe doesn't mean they can't also do solo movies. Standalone stuff. That's pretty much it. Let's do your tier list real quick. So this is list more or less the same, and then take note the top says not seen. So those are not all S tier. So yeah, this is our list. Good DCU, I guess. I don't know. There are some enjoyable movies here. As a DC fan, this is not a complete loss. There are some good stuff here. You got Dr. Fate in live action. As much as Black Adam didn't really work out, I am grateful we have that. That exists. The Flash, not the best Flash movie, but you got Michael Keaton back as Batman. There's good stuff there. And there is a Flash movie now that exists, even though it's not the best. They did a Justice League, and even though it wasn't the best, there was demand for a better Justice League, so they know now that people want that.
Yeah. I think, honestly, when you look at the DCEU, you have to look at the bright spots, because yes, a lot of it was a massive waste of time. But
Yeah.
if you let that be that, if you just let its legacy be that it was a waste of time, then that's all it will ever be. And there will be no value in all these things that have potential to provide value for people. And it's just a waste.
There's no point in pointing out the negatives of these anymore, because we are past asking for them to drop it and move on, because we did that. So the only value these have is the value you choose to take from them. And if you don't think there's any value here, then you've already decided on that and you're out. But for the rest of us, it's like, you know what, I actually do like Batman v Superman, or there's a lot of parts from Flash I like, or Aquaman was fun, stuff like that. Get out of it what you can. Anyway, I think that's it. Thank you for watching another tier list from the experts, because we know everything.
You mean I know everything?
Well,